Have you ever felt the quiet exhaustion of a day spent being productive, only to realize that nothing truly changed? You read another chapter of a book, ticked off another task, scrolled through an article that promised to make you smarter, and yet, when you closed your eyes at night, there was no real movement in your life, only the faint echo of motion. It felt like forward progress, didn't it? But deep down, you sensed it was more like walking on a treadmill. Your legs burned, your chest heaved, but the scenery never shifted. Imagine this. You're holding a book in your hands, the kind that seems to promise enlightenment. You underline passages, nod at profound lines, maybe even share a quote on social media. For a fleeting moment, you feel wiser, transformed. But the next day, your patterns remain the same. The insight you thought you had captured dissolves, leaving behind the same habits, the same doubts, the same quiet unease. Was that progress, or just the illusion of it? You know the feeling. You've worked late, organized your to-do lists, even pursued self-improvement with discipline. You filled your calendar with tasks, workouts, meditations, books, podcasts, workshops. And still, a gnawing voice whispers, why hasn't anything truly changed? Why am I still the same person, circling the same doubts, repeating the same struggles? Here lies the paradox. The harder you try to move forward, the more stagnant you become. Busyness feels like progress. Knowledge feels like transformation. Planning feels like control. But are they? Or are they shadows, reflections of growth without the substance of it? Think of the times you've been praised for being driven or productive. You wore those words like badges of honor. Yet behind them, was there not also fatigue, disconnection, and the uncomfortable suspicion that you were chasing something undefined? You were moving, yes, but moving toward what? If you paused long enough to ask, would you even know? Philosophers have wrestled with this very contradiction. Kierkegaard once wrote, "The greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all." Isn't that exactly what it feels like? To spend your life running without direction, losing yourself, not in dramatic collapse, but in the quiet erosion of days filled with motion that leads nowhere. And yet, there's a strange comfort in the illusion. Doing something feels safer than doing nothing. Reading another page feels less terrifying than facing the silence of asking, who am I becoming? You cling to the rituals of progress because they shield you from the abyss of uncertainty. But what if those rituals are chains disguised as wings? Consider this unsettling thought. Perhaps progress itself is one of the most seductive illusions of our age. You've been taught that constant learning, working, improving means you're advancing. But what if it only means you're keeping yourself busy enough to avoid the real question, am I truly alive, or just moving through motions crafted for me by others? And so, here you stand, caught in the contradiction, moving constantly, yet not moving at all. A traveler with no destination, a reader without transformation, a worker without true creation. You are trapped in the illusion of forward motion, and the more you run, the more lost you feel. The question rises, sharp and undeniable. If all this motion is not progress, then what is? And why do you continue to chase it? This question does not let go. It lingers, unsettling, as you step into the next chapter, where the roots of this illusion will be uncovered, and you will see why this trap is far deeper than you ever imagined. Why does this illusion of progress exist? Why do you, so intelligent, so aware, fall into the same cycle again and again, believing you're moving forward while in truth standing still? The answer is not simple. It is woven into the fabric of your psychology, your culture, even the deepest philosophical structures that shape how you understand what it means to live. From the moment you were a child, you were rewarded for doing, not for being. A gold star for finishing your homework, applause for staying busy, recognition for achievements. Slowly, without realizing it, You learn that your worth is measured by what you produce, not by who you are. Can you see how deeply this conditioning burrows into your daily life? Each task completed gives you a brief high, a fleeting sense of being enough. But like an addict, you crave the next task, the next improvement, the next little proof that you are moving forward. Psychologists call this the progress principle. You feel happiest not when you reach an end, but when you sense you are advancing. Teresa Amabai of Harvard wrote that even small wins give an emotional lift. And yet, when every day is broken into micro-progress checking boxes, reading summaries, finishing one more exercise, you are left with a life fragmented into tiny illusions of advancement, but no unified transformation. This is why you read, listen, learn, and yet remain unchanged. Knowledge is not the same as wisdom, but your mind tricks you into believing that absorbing information is the same as becoming different. Blaise Pascal warned long ago, man's sensitivity to little things and insensitivity to the greatest things are marks of a strange disorder. You are sensitive to the little progress, the minor satisfactions, and blind to the greater truth. You may be rearranging the furniture of your mind while the house itself remains the same. Philosophy deepens the diagnosis. Nietzsche, for example, spoke of the last man, a creature who avoids risk, avoids true creation, and instead seeks comfort in endless distractions that mimic meaning. Isn't that who you risk becoming? You fill your hours with productivity apps, with self-help mantras, with habits that promise transformation, but keep you safely within the confines of the familiar. You have the illusion of power without the terror of freedom. The roots go even further. Modern society thrives on your busyness. An economy depends on constant consumption, not just of products, but of ideas, books, courses, and even identities. You are told, grow, improve, optimize. But this growth is never yours. It feeds a system that requires you to keep moving, so you never pause long enough to ask, why? Busyness is a control mechanism disguised as empowerment. By always moving, you never have the silence to rebel. Even psychologically, you fear stopping. Because what happens if you stop? You might discover the emptiness beneath the activity. You might confront the question, what am I actually doing with my life? And isn't that question terrifying? The illusion of progress saves you from it. Reading another book gives you the safety of believing you're becoming wiser, even if your life remains untouched. Working late convinces you you're responsible, even if your work leaves no lasting trace. Improving your routines convinces you of growth, even if it only polishes the cage you live in. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Isn't that the core of your dilemma? You do not read, work, self-improve for the sake of your soul, but often to avoid it. You drown in busyness because silence would force you to hear the deeper questions you are not ready to confront. The hidden problem is not laziness, it is avoidance disguised as effort. Not stagnation, but movement without direction. A philosopher might call it a false teleology. You believe you're heading somewhere, but the path itself loops back endlessly. Your mind is soothed by the rhythm of motion, but your life remains untouched by transformation. And so the illusion persists. It is rooted in your psychology, reinforced by society, justified by philosophy, and hidden beneath your fear of silence. You run because stopping feels like death. Yet in that refusal to stop, you die a little each day moving, but never becoming. And this is where the tension grows heavier, because the problem is not harmless. It is not just wasted time. It has consequences, profound ones, that shape your very existence. If you continue down this path, the illusion of progress will not merely deceive you. It will quietly construct the reality you live in. The question is no longer, why do you fall into the trap? You now must ask, what is this trap doing to you and to all of us? You may think this illusion of progress is harmless, that it's better to move, even in circles, than to stand still. But what if the very act of running in circles reshapes you? What if the treadmill you're on isn't just keeping you in place, but quietly programming who you become? Every day you tell yourself, "At least I'm doing something." You reward yourself for motion, not meaning. And in that ritual, something subtle happens. You begin to value the activity more than the result. The checkbox becomes more satisfying than the transformation it was supposed to bring. Slowly, without noticing, your identity shifts. You are no longer someone striving toward a vision, but someone addicted to the performance of striving. Cognitive science gives a chilling insight here. Your brain's dopamine system is designed to reward anticipation and pursuit, not just achievement. The act of moving toward a goal releases the same chemical as actually reaching it. That's why checking off a task feels good, even if the task was meaningless. That's why you can spend hours reading productivity hacks instead of doing meaningful work, and still feel a surge of satisfaction. Your brain cannot tell the difference between motion and progress. And so, you become trapped not by failure, but by the illusion of success. This is not only personal. Cultures are built on these same illusions. Societies that worship growth, economic growth, technological growth, even growth of information, train you to equate more with better. GDP rises, new gadgets flood the market, libraries expand with data beyond comprehension. But does that mean we are wiser, happier, more human? Or are we like you, merely mistaking expansion for evolution? Think of the hours you've given away to scrolling, to reading, to planning, all under the banner of improvement. What did it cost? Perhaps your relationships, strained by your absence even when you're physically present. Perhaps your creativity, dulled by constant consumption. Perhaps your very sense of self, fragmented into endless microversions of who you think you should be. The illusion of progress doesn't just waste your time, it steals your wholeness. And the most dangerous part? The trap is invisible. Because unlike failure, which hurts and demands recognition, the illusion feels good. It soothes you. It whispers, "You're moving forward, don't worry." And so you do not rebel. You do not question. You continue to walk, eyes fixed on the mirage. Consider this. Years pass. You've read dozens of books, listened to hundreds of podcasts, ticked off thousands of tasks. And yet, in the stillness of your heart, the same questions remain. You are older, but not deeper. Busier, but not freer. Surrounded by knowledge, but still unable to live with clarity. And one day, when you look back, you realize that the treadmill has carried you nowhere. The pain is not that you failed, but that you never truly tried. Philosophers have warned about this silent erosion. Henry David Thoreau wrote, "It is not enough to be busy. So are the ants." The question is, what are we busy about? You must face the haunting truth. If you do not choose, your busyness will choose for you. You will become the sum of your distractions. And here is the deeper consequence. Society depends on your blindness. As long as you mistake activity for progress, you remain predictable, manageable, easily guided by forces outside yourself. The illusion is not an accident. It is a system. A worker who feels productive will keep working, even if nothing changes. A consumer who feels informed will keep consuming, even if wisdom never arrives. The treadmill is not yours. It was built for you. So the question grows more urgent. What happens if you never break free? The answer is not merely personal stagnation. It is the slow construction of a life that was never truly lived. A life measured in checklists, in fleeting dopamine highs, in empty rituals of progress. A life that looked like forward motion from the outside, but within was only stillness. You are not just wasting time, you are allowing the illusion to build the very walls of your existence. And the longer you run, the thicker those walls become, until one day You no longer even remember what real progress felt like. The urgency is clear. The illusion is not benign. It is corrosive, reshaping both your inner life and the world you live in. And unless you rebel, it will claim you entirely. The next question, then, is unavoidable. If the illusion has trapped you so completely, how can you ever break free? You've felt the weight of it, the treadmill, the illusion, the endless motion without meaning. Now comes the burning question. How do you escape? How do you step off the machine that seems to define not only your life, but the very structure of the world around you? At first, the idea of breaking free feels impossible. You imagine that freedom requires doing even more. Another system, another method, another tool for optimization. But isn't that just the same trap, disguised in new clothes? The rebellion cannot be another form of busyness. It has to be something far more radical. The first act of rebellion is to stop, to pause deliberately in the middle of the rush, to face the terrifying silence you've avoided. You may think, but I can't stop, everything will fall apart. And yet, is that not the very proof of your chains? If your sense of self collapses the moment you stop moving, then what you built was never yours. The pause itself becomes an act of revolution. History shows us that those who truly changed the course of life often broke free in precisely this way. Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha, abandoned the palace of constant distractions to sit in silence under a tree. Socrates, accused of corrupting youth, urged Athenians to question everything, even the definitions of progress and success their society worshipped. These figures did not optimize their lives. They shattered the very foundations of what life was supposed to mean. For you, the rebellion begins with a simple yet terrifying shift. You must stop measuring progress by external markers. Books read, hours worked, tasks completed. These are no longer your compass. Instead, you must dare to ask, am I becoming more alive, more free, more true to myself? That is the measure. This requires a counterintuitive courage to unlearn, to admit that much of what you called growth was repetition, to recognize that self-improvement was often self-distraction, to see that the world trained you to value efficiency over depth, productivity over presence, motion over meaning, and then, with quiet defiance, to choose otherwise. Imagine the power of saying no, not out of laziness, but out of sovereignty. No to the endless stream of tasks that serve no higher vision. No to the consumption of knowledge without transformation. No to the identity built on the fragile scaffolding of productivity. Each refusal becomes a strike against the illusion. Each act of stillness becomes a declaration of freedom. But rebellion is not only about saying no, it is also about building anew. Once you strip away the false markers of progress, you are left with space, a terrifying, empty space. What fills it must be chosen consciously. What values will you build your life upon? What vision will guide your steps, not in circles, but in a true direction? Nietzsche spoke of the need to revalue all values, to overturn the inherited measures of worth and create one's own. This is your task, to decide that depth matters more than speed, presence more than productivity, truth more than busyness. To reclaim the right to define progress not as endless motion, but as the slow, deliberate becoming of your true self. And in this, you find a strange empowerment. Suddenly, you are no longer at the mercy of systems that demand your constant motion. You are no longer addicted to the small dopamine hits of busyness. You have discovered a forbidden truth, that true growth often feels like stillness, that true freedom often begins with loss, that true progress is not the quantity of your steps, but the authenticity of your direction. Think of it, how dangerous such freedom is to a world built on illusion. A society thrives when you stay busy, consuming, distracted. But when you reclaim your inner sovereignty, you become unpredictable. You are no longer seduced by the glittering prizes of productivity. You see through them, and in doing so, you begin to live on your own terms. And that is the essence of rebellion. To stop playing the game you are never meant to win. To walk off the treadmill, not into passivity, but into a path you choose for yourself. A path that may look slower, quieter, less impressive to others, but one that finally moves you forward in truth. The forbidden truth is in your hands now, but it leads to a deeper, final realization, one that does not just break the illusion of progress, but redefines the very meaning of life itself. You've stepped off the treadmill. You've dared to pause. You've begun to reclaim sovereignty over your direction. But what lies beyond rebellion? If rejecting the illusion is the first step, then what is the deeper truth that awaits when you finally confront yourself, naked of all distractions? Here it is, unsettling and liberating at once. Progress was never the point. The idea that life is a line moving forward, climbing upward, accumulating more knowledge, more achievements, more self-improvement, was always an illusion. Life is not a ladder to be climbed. It is a depth to be lived. Think about it. A tree does not measure its worth by how quickly it grows taller. It deepens its roots, spreads its branches, bears fruit in its season. A river does not obsess about reaching the sea as quickly as possible. It winds, it curves, it nourishes life along the way. Only you, shaped by culture, school, society, were taught to believe that every day must advance you towards some abstract future where you will finally be enough. And so you ran endlessly, chasing a horizon that was never there. The truth is this: you are not meant to progress endlessly. You are meant to be, to live deeply, not merely forward, to inhabit the present, not just race toward the future. Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." But the tragedy is that you've been taught to live only for the forwards, never for the now. What if the greatest illusion of all is that you are incomplete, that you must always be chasing improvement to justify your existence? Can you see it? The truth that collapses the entire structure of the treadmill is this: you are never lacking. You are never broken. You do not need endless progress to earn your right to exist. You are whole not tomorrow, not after 10 more books, not after another decade of busyness, but here, now, in this moment. The final realization is not about stopping movement altogether. It is about changing the dimension in which you move. Instead of striving forward, you sink downward, inward into presence, into meaning, into authenticity. Progress is not about distance, but about depth. A single step taken with awareness, love, and truth carries you further than 1,000 steps taken blindly in the illusion of progress. Imagine living from this truth. You no longer measure your days by tasks completed, but by moments fully inhabited. A conversation with a friend becomes infinite in its richness. A quiet walk becomes more transformative than 10 self-help books. A decision made with courage becomes more valuable than years of cautious busyness. You are no longer a runner chasing a mirage. You are a being, alive in the only place you can ever be, here. This realization does not mean passivity. It means freedom. It means that when you choose to act, to work, to learn, you do so not from fear of falling behind, but from joy, from curiosity, from the sheer vitality of being alive. Your actions are no longer desperate attempts to prove you're progressing. They become expressions of who you already are. And this, perhaps, is the deepest irony. Only when you stop chasing progress do you truly grow. Only when you let go of the illusion do you discover real transformation. Like a seed that must break its shell in darkness before sprouting into the light, you must surrender the obsession with moving forward before you can actually become. The great philosophers, the mystics, the poets, they all knew this. Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "The only journey is the one within." And now you see what he meant. The truest journey is not outward, not upward, not faster. It is inward, into the unfathomable depth of your own being. So here you stand, at the edge of the illusion. You have felt the treadmill beneath your feet. You have seen its roots in psychology, in culture, in fear. You have glimpsed its corrosive consequences. And you have rebelled, choosing stillness, authenticity, sovereignty. Now, with this final truth, you understand. Life is not a race to be won. It is a depth to be entered again and again with courage and openness. What will you do with this realization? That is the lingering question. Will you return to the treadmill, comforted by its familiar rhythm? Or will you dare to live without the illusion of progress, to walk not faster, but deeper into the mystery of existence? The choice is yours. And perhaps, in the quiet courage of choosing, you will finally begin to live.